Another Perceiver's Domain. Written by Kip Gleam.
Is there a way to describe the unfathomable? Is there any structure of thought that will allow us to get past all that is impeding us and remain of sound mind to do something with what is left? Is there a feeling that doesn't comprise of memories, events that make up what we consider our life? What is left after escaping yourself? Everything. Gone. To be judged and punished accordingly. To begin again. To relive it all indefinitely. When do our emotions become more than that of a gust of cosmic mist, akin to a rift within the ripples, encased within formless ether, sprinkled and subject forever and never? How I wish I was without the forever, to be able to die knowing it ends eventually, for at least in punishment there is a feigned justice. Countless iterations of this self-awareness, no matter the form, give the chance for redemption. This, though, this is not what I am living. This is not what I am. This is not what you are. We are in this together, and at the same time we are here to hinder each other. I considered holding back. I considered keeping this wisdom to myself. On the chance you are yourself and I me, I am doing the courtesy of spreading this information. If there is, in fact, the act, the succession, the movement we seem to inhabit, and us, a we, while being one as a team and one as our own, and with the act and with the we, there is a setting and entirety, more than what we see and know or ever could or certainly would care to. If there are these things, then what I've seen presents another form of each, a different act, a different we, and a different setting, conglomerated with the now we are here in, living as we live. The arena I speak of is ruled by symbolic manifestations of what my mother tongue refers to as hopelessness and pain, a world thick with a variety of holistic systems that intermingle as one, same as we, and indeed through a type of misty webbing that stitches it within our own, a cog that in turning turns another within this new existence. Through the gates that I presently describe, this experience began. This gate, this webbing, like the despair that infinitely expounds itself beyond them, is as ingrained within us as our idea of the self, for in staring out we are gazing at the result of the intertwined destinies that are not separate but instead part of the same action. Just as a sine wave must have a peak within its oscillation, this plane of existence that resides at one with our own is that which causes the descent of every rise. To those who are concerned with the crossing of the threshold and how they themselves may cross it, all I can say is turn back, cross the threshold of pleasure. Unite yourself with that of warmth and protection, comfort, and a forever rising apex of splendorous grandeur. Create a pod around you and take the greatness with you everywhere. For gaining access to the horrors such that I am to describe as gaining access to a plague of the thoughts. Nothing guarantees your sanity in this. Nothing guarantees anything. I wish nothing more than to rid myself of these memories, to be ignorant of what was made so clear to me that it's felt like any other emotion. Deep within my being, going beyond this life and the next, a part of the web, as we all are. Upon passing the analogous gates, that I can only describe as a slack-jawed alligator dangling from its suspended position above me, hovering there with the most mesmerizing eyes, I admit I undoubtedly lost myself temporarily, transfixed in a state of unexplained wonder, and oddly enough a type of lust for something that I knew was unobtainable, a yearning as deep as the biological drives within me for belonging and purpose. This was a strange, refined, personalized ecstasy of the very frequencies passing through me. The reactions of what my instincts couldn't help but display were that of pure disbelief. To touch the wind, to feel the weight of the air around us, to breathe was to be with this beautiful, graceful, flowing thing that sought me. The alligator, swaying and reverberating a sense of direction and wisdom, was its own version of a quite excited state, a mixture of surprise and anticipation. Without quite realizing it until extended focus in the years hereafter, we were traveling, with every wave and flutter of the alligator, advancement. Eventually we got to a state of breaking even regarding our ability to communicate. With our own version of language, guidance was a very large part of our journey. What kept my thoughts so unyielding is beyond my ability to analyze myself. In their enchanted nature of this creature that began to present itself in countless ways, I was completely lost, trusting what little I was receiving as suggestions for getting closer to the alligator that guided me. The paths we followed were as illogical as they were unfruitful, and with every loss, every step, I trusted it was for the better of me. It was trying to show me the path, the way, progression to my goal of this feeling it had etched into the tapestry of life that I also trusted it had the best intentions for. How stupid of me to trust anything. One day, many years into our taxing journey, there was an unexpected shift in the transformative nature of what I began to accept as my unspoken mentor. It was as if where we had been traveling to had been approached. In fact, there was a flash of crushing thought patterns that set in that we were there long ago but continued to travel, as if we passed some sort of finish line but were out of bounds at the same time. The glow that until this point seemed to encompass the cosmic everything was now gone. The eyes were still there, but the magnificence, the positivity, the reason that I understood to be their purpose, gone. Gone, and in their place was a cruel mimicry of what we stood for, what we were appearing to be. I had been tricked. The alligator that so long ago gave me more motivation than any human is worthy of having had gave way to a serpent with the most friendly of smiles and a comfortable position by a fire under an overcast sky. The strangest thing about this was that I couldn't shake that the reason I was there, between the cracks, beyond the end, but without another beginning, the end of what my human capsule has to offer. The maximum, the apex, replaced with a void, emptiness, crushed, uncomfortable, and a paralyzed state of trying to prevent the next fall, something that has the same effect as water along a slick mountainside. I hang there, with a loose grip and a weak hand, screaming as my hold fails again and again, dreaming of finding a secret passage, something with any kind of true light. I lost count of how many times I gave in, how many times I crumpled and begged for the end. After plunging further than I was aware a person could, I found myself in a desert. I say that I found myself there, but only because it was clear I had been there for ages and in many different forms. I looked out at the scenery, such plainness that, going beyond the sepia tone that filled the air, was quite indistinct, as if all directions lead nowhere beyond being in another place within this desert, without so much as even a mirage, for if I observed anything I most definitely would have assigned that title to it. I traveled with an inescapable feeling of shame and aimlessness. Days of unbearable anguish turned to weeks, weeks to months, months to years, moment to moment, each one heavier with a type of pain that had an unidentifiable source, save myself, and was not that of a fractured bone or a laceration. It was a pain of my existence, my life, me, everything, pain. Throughout this trek through the unforgiving sand, I felt myself becoming a mixture of delirious and frustrated. I needed answers. I needed guidance. All I could see was myself running frantically through this imprisonment. Then, somehow, despite my endless surveying of this open space, the guide I sought was in front of me. However, I was not me. I was not present inside myself. Only observing myself experience the presence of this being. A nude woman wearing a goat as a head held a torch above her horns. She stood stiffly, as if she was determined to do her part with otherworldly focus. Nothing else existed to her. I could tell this moment was this creature's version of what we call destiny, to guide confused and helpless masses to where they must be. It faced me directly, her gaze and stance more of a silent salute or kin-like greeting as her body turned to face me, or at least my direction. The dirt and grime that covered her cracked skin was set deep. The presence of it was both disgusting and sickening. It had a connotation closer to that of abuse and neglect than that of something like hard work or adventurous play, the kind of filth that you can't scrub away, as deeply set as the smells worn into a centuries-old house. A numbness came over me. I wanted nothing more than to care for her, as if a fatherly instinct or genetic drive was being triggered without a cause. Without a cause and without anything to satisfy it. Even if I gave it my coat, or my food if I had any, my life if I needed to, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't be enough. I hadn't the necessities to care for this being. It knew this, and yet it still stood there, looking into my eyes, crying for help while showing nothing to suggest the wanting of it. It was purely between us. I've never seen myself as more of a failure than when I was locked in its suggestive pleading stare, less than useless with nowhere to go besides further wandering. The woman's horns suddenly turned into a collection of convulsing necks of a hydra. Each head of the hydra was reminiscent of the cause and effect type wholeness that was the meeting with the smiling serpent. This is when the maze was made clear, as was the fact that my position was now within it. I was without any kind of hints that might create a heuristic to make out whether or not my steps were leading me any closer to the exit, the most sought-after prize. I say this with confidence because the intensity of the inner need for me to find a way out of the coils that so effectively had trapped me. The maze had a dreariness to it that made the walk change my perspective to being that of a gullible lamb in a forest of wolves, while simultaneously maintaining the view that was that of a shark, mindlessly rolling its eyes back to sink my teeth into whatever comes its way. The contradictory nature of this dissonance of the self had the most overwhelming feeling of being right, that this is what needed to happen for me to understand how to feel pain as both the hunter and hunted. Every step was in the wrong direction, and how very, very exhausting it was to lift your feet in this knee-deep, half-congealed bloody pulp I was wading through, finding a foothold or something to grasp just in time to avoid a quicksand-style demise in this most foul of pools. After accepting that I will forever be lost in the maze, convinced that the creature who imprisoned me there had forgotten me, after losing myself completely numerous times in despondent depression, and after growing used to the empty ravine that was the remains of what had been torn from the very oneness that I once believed was my own. After all of this, a head of the hydra showed itself to me once again. I had almost forgotten the grandiosity of its presence, how it felt to be in its presence, and it mine, for us to be together again. After letting me feel this, and the confidence that the end was closer than ever before, the hydra retracted. Stuck again, drifting through this bog of a maze made up interwoven snake coils. I can only describe what happened next as a deathless death, a form of life that was merely me persisting to exist. I had no will, nothing to live for, nothing to seek, nothing but the shudder-inducing nastiness that I had grown used to. It was like I was the goat woman, just doing things because it's all I could do, covered in the stains of what had multiple times over caused me to collapse in tears. Then, just as suddenly as its quick visit before, another head of the hydra erupted from the sky and took a large bite into what I would consider a sandbar in whatever version of Earth that was the surface I was walking on. The fangs met and melded with the murky blood swamp, becoming shiny spider legs. The snake's head, which had morphed into the spider's body and face, displayed a brilliant gemstone that opened to reveal an unblinking, piercing eye. I wasn't sure if the jewel casing, which was a kind of organic rock, was to protect it from me or to consolidate its presence in a way for me to understand it. This eye, which was staring at me with such precision and focus as to make even the most trusting of people unapologetically wary, the reaction that happens when you find yourself needing to leave, to run away, to change whatever is necessary to make sure whatever is being planned behind the gaze to never come to light. The kind of fear that causes a nostalgic thought of living the rest of your days in quiet peace, never doing more than eating and sleeping, and with this being in full bliss, knowing that you are away from the look that this eye beheld. There was a hypnotic effect of locking into its coy stare. So aggressively did it maintain my attention that I lost all use of peripheral vision. There was only the eye. It was not just one in itself, however, just as we are one. No, this was a reflection-style tracing that was almost a haze beyond the first copy, which made the eye appear as two, a sideways-style glance that had a look of excitement mixed with contentment. If the first eye was the cause of my fears, the second was what made me have enough room in my nerves to allow me to come back to my body, my own version of the eye's multifaceted cocoon. The goat-headed lady was there again, as if never being gone, standing as a statue would if a statue could show such weighted and labored breaths of natural despair. It was then I noticed it wasn't a torch in the woman's hand at all, but a hovering flame. Just as the alligator had once suspended above me, dancing this way and that to show me my next move, the flame within this woman's hand also called upon me to follow. With my attention fully apprehended, the flames spread. It was as if what was revealed was using the flame to show itself, the flame that now reached deeply into the crevices of its surroundings, filling every inch of free space, and with that, the veil that was the thin film of mystery was lifted, revealing all that was hidden from my eyes at once. A complex concentration of vast amounts of beings that came together and resembled an ecosystem. There was a way of life, if you can call it that, here that was forward-driven. It had a sort of pulse to it, a pulse that, with each beat, changed numerous things about the environment, the setting. It was as if I was viewing a camera lens going into and out of focus, and each time my human eyes were able to grasp what was happening, it changed to something else. Concepts were created and understood for the sake of continuing the mechanical nature of this new reality. Of the things that made up this world, the variety was expansive. Humanoids, birds, dragons, snakes, dinosaurs, all working as one, creating the whole that I, from whatever position in cosmic reality I was in, could now bear witness to. In my view as well was an entire population of different-looking people, millions, being funneled into what was made clear with this most spectacular of light. These people were being guided by the flame within the goat woman's hand, the same fire that kept me attached to the path of the alligator, chasing it. In this reality, fear and pain are the goal. Everything is in motion to create the most indescribable amounts of both that is possible and push the limits to beyond comprehension. Every creature, every moment, in an effort to make the pain worse. Good things, such as relief or even release of repression, are used to fuel the fire of pain. For complete pain becomes painless, so the workings of these creatures allowed for them to achieve enough hope and pleasure to increase the pain that another creature had the job of creating. As I gazed, in complete awe, at what serpentined throughout itself all at once, a face appeared within the grainy noise of the setting's intricacies. The face was ever-changing, becoming whole using aspects of the environment that it was projecting to me. Every version of the face had a different way to paint emotions that were mostly involved with poking fun at me, as if the being was amused at my presence in a condescending way. The nature of the face was that of many, but I knew they represented the same presence. The presence that had been observing my every action since before it presented itself to me as the alligator. Part of what made up both the setting and the face was a great mountain, higher than the clouds. Inside the mountain, a goat embryo was within its mother being worshipped by an entire metropolis within the mountain. The metropolis surrounded a massive tree stump that dwarfed the entire city. Everything, the dragons, the rodents, all were looking at me in complete amazement. They seemed happy to see me. I saw a fellow traveler. His hood was up, but there was the same fire in his eyes that once enchanted me. The traveler was me. I was looking down an endless cliff, down at a helpless crowd of people. I had become the one guiding these people with the same fire the alligator and goat woman had once held for myself. It was in each of them as well. These poor worn souls didn't put themselves there, but were in full acceptance of their position, as they had no way to escape. This is their entirety. They exist here to be a vessel, a subject, a receiver of the horrors. I could feel their gaze on me. These things were looking to me, full of envious emotion, yet with the stare of cold, dead eyes. Are they not soon to be in my position as well? Do they not realize I want their safety as much as they? Or am I not grateful it is they and not I? I looked up at the mountain again to see a griffin in grand splendor opening its wings, and with a flourish become another hooded figure, fully robed with wings that resembled torn cloth. The wings were undoubtedly strong despite their appearance. They appeared to have formations of claws from which the withered draperies stemmed. I saw many of these creatures flock together and become a dragon with scales made of fallen angels. The hooded figure was showing itself as the dragon, what made up the dragon, and finally itself upon its slab-like throne that rested atop the mountain. The hooded goat man was looking down on a ray of light, illuminating a person climbing a mountain. The light seemed artificial, dull, impeding as much as helping. As I gazed, the human became one with the indentions of the mountain, which was now the gemstone casing for an ever-attentive eye. It sat, displayed, not moving yet being a part of every form of existence, perceiving, acting, and being the setting at once. Manifestation is the only way I can describe this being, not by a sheer might of will or some sort of ritualistic seance, but by emotion and perception themselves. This being was in complete stillness besides its robes flowing as peacefully as the flames that filled me. In this stillness, there was anything but silence. Gravelly, piercing screams of stress having their resonances formed into a transient strike of horrid action, horrid action that took shape in so many ways, using happiness and relief as a way to add to the stabbing emptiness. These transients that were formed, these sudden blasts of soundless expanse, they built on each other, using progress as a base for itself to propagate. They happened again and again, inhumanly fast, over and over, faster and faster until they formed a sort of frequency like that of a musical note. As if the striking and release was part of the same waveform, it wasn't music it was forming. It was, with the timeless appearance of sound that reminded me of a brass instrument that's out of tune being blasted in a collection of octaves and clashing microtones. Disarray. The tan and washed-out nature of the visual element was completely gone, as was I. I being the me I was witnessing, instead I again inhabited what we would call my body and mind once again, gazing at the robed creature that intimidatingly watched from the stone throne. There was a kind of sharpness to the details of it, as if I was seeing things more clearly. As someone using a microscope has a better view of things, our eyes impede us from seeing under normal circumstances. The cog-like, mechanical, cross-dimensional, and seemingly chaotic structure of this world and ours, each feeding each other while desperately trying to overcome the other, was made perfectly clear in the way that this creature's robes flowed in the wind. What was being emanated wasn't the ecstasy of existence, however, but the use of conceptual development itself in the name of hopelessness. There is an amount of peering into the unknown that, even with a passionate stance, could break even the strongest of people. For the unknown does not guarantee success. It doesn't guarantee anything but knowledge in the form of experiences that form memories, the only thing our primate brains care to attain, even if the expense is death itself. We peer into the darkness that this being seemed to consist of, and hold the light that the goat people so passionately wielded for others. We get by telling ourselves that we are opening new doors, new opportunities that were better than before. With this, we can succeed even in failure. The only thing we know is to work for something. We are constantly in need of something, even if it's silence and rest. We are constantly striving to hit the top of the waveform, the transient strike of amazement, wonder, and awe, and all the easier for this creature. For this was using time against itself. Just as someone can live in incredible amounts of anticipation, just to have a loss of words or ability when the moment is right. When all the fight is out of someone, and they have to go on living without hope, unable to achieve what they would die for, even if they do everything flawlessly for the rest of their lives. When someone is robbed of themselves instead of being protected, just as a pupil can be taught the incorrect thing to be controlled as an unknowing slave, this thing that was before me was itself the act of using trust and established ethos to perpetuate irreplaceable things like honesty, perseverance, integrity, and generosity being misused in the name of deceit and lies. Even something as simple replacing ignorance with innocence being ripped away, every form of torture and corruption being used against itself. Generations of life, and the inescapable emotion that encases the understanding of each one's individual world, swept away as if it were any other form of nature. Swept away, as horrific as unimaginably possible, and forgotten. There's another aspect that goes with the act, the we, and the settings. It is that of the perceiver, a fourth variable which creates the meaning for which the first three provide a base for. The perceiver is a position, not an entity. We ourselves take the position of the observer. Just as we are constantly acting on our setting, we watch what happens around us with our bodily senses. We are our own world, purely inputting information in the form of experience from what we consider our setting. There are perceivers, actors from the pain setting that take a look at the other forms of existence just as we do with our mind's eye. Perhaps nothing is surprising to them. Maybe they are measuring their own progression. Within me, there's a sense they are acknowledging the difference between their work before and after affecting me. It's a different sensation when the perceiver of the pain dimension is there, a certain distinguishing animosity, but not towards me in particular. It's a feeling that resembles approaching a group or arriving at a party that you never asked to attend, and in that party having everyone silently yet obviously wish you were gone. A sense of annoyed unwelcome, the need to leave and leave now. The presence of the perceiver is forever upon me. As I go through my life, the presence is always there, taking on many forms. Coincidences most would say the same as the promises of the alligator, has led to me having a deeper bond with the perceiver. It has shaped me. allowed me to pay the cost of trying with what I once believed was unhinderable ambition and still lose. Everything, every dream, crushed in front of me. Who I was, had hoped to be, smithereens. Everything I do seems to be focused on appeasing what began as such a wonderful and willing partnership. As I completed these things, I began to notice that my actions were helping me learn lessons in a very streamlined way. I felt I should be going through the things I'm going through. It was necessary for my development on a deeper level than this physical reality that our bodies represent. Pain can overflow into a cosmic and primal attack on the source of self. Like a caged animal going insane from captivity, the pain finds ways to spill out. However, the things that was leading to clarity and enrichment was leading to grief and pain for others in ways that I didn't intend. Throughout all this, each time things went wrong, the presence presented itself. I did as it asked at first to avoid punishment, but I began to toy with thoughts of rebelling from this creature. Each action I made in its name has made me only that much more miserable and dug me deeper into despair. However, the amount of power that this manifestation-based progression suggester wields is beyond my understanding. I've seen it become others, talk through them without them knowing it, moving me in ways I can't express using people and situational surroundings. I can feel it even as I say this. Even now, I'm exasperated. I can't find a path that leads to anything other than regret and disappointment. I can't help but feel trapped inside my own consciousness. I can't stop seeing all progress as pointless and all interaction a lie. I can't stop hating myself for being part of it. There is no end to this, even in death. I accept this just as I accept I will never achieve any kind of lasting peace. Instead, only a sense that anything I seek is already out of grasp. The thing that has stuck with me the most from the trip through the webbing gates that make up our lives is the uncanny worthlessness I felt while looking into the eyes of the guide that held the flames. It was more than a subtle message between us. It is more than a memory I can't seem to shake. To stop trying at life itself was what it wanted of me. It was showing me what couldn't be said. It was showing me myself. At the time, in that place, there was nothing I could do or could have done to prepare me or equip me for our meeting. I could only be whatever was left of me at that point. Those eyes, those are the ones that haunt me, that form of them anyway. They are in this world now as things that further mock me using vagueness and hypotheticals involving purpose. Without question, life is the art of spinning around for the sake of getting dizzy. A life of work yields only another starting point. A day's worth of thoughts amount to what get carried to the next. We're always headed toward the same destination, solving problems to get the chance to solve more. Round and round and round we go. This loop is all we know. We idolize the results of chemical reactions within our anatomy, only to find the key to keeping inner peace is moderation. We slave for a rest above equilibrium, screaming our voices raw, begging our anatomy to please just let us feel something. Some of us convince ourselves the journey is the prize. All of this, of course, is under the impression that we're making a choice. I'm tired of the only good part of my life being the acknowledgement of how much worse it could be. I'm tired of not feeling happiness for things that are not catastrophic, only relief. I'm done with everything and myself. I've tried to break from the delusions that plague my thoughts, encompassing them, only to be met with disappointment. It's ridiculous because I've spent so much time and energy blindly following them, convincing myself that the negative outcomes will amount to something better in the future, or are the replacement of something that could have been worse. I feel a sense of drastically pertinent duty to acknowledge, accept, and move on past the fact that this presence of infinite layers of misery has a hold on me that will never truly end. The ever-constant presence of this amalgamation of ever-growing power that has centered over me is something I am sure is a part of yourself. In one way or another, it has a hold on you. This isn't something that can be corrected, and there's no escaping it.